Hey everyone, today marks the beginning of our grammar unit. Before we get started, I do want to cover just some basic information because our grammar unit is one that will last all year long. So I just want us all to be on the same page regarding expectations so that you kind of know how our grammar units will work for the rest of the year. So first, I want to talk to you a little bit about our learning goals. I want you to know that our grammar unit is based on the ELA standards that have been outlined by the Minnesota Department of Education. More importantly, though, I'm hoping that the things that we learn in our grammar units will be applicable to the real world. So this means that real-world applications have been kept in mind as I've designed our grammar unit. I always like to tell my students that by the time you leave high school, no one is ever going to ask you to identify a noun in a sentence. It's just not going to happen. However, you will be expected to speak and write according to grammar conventions. So, I try to make this something that you can actually apply and use in the real world. With that in mind, I want you to know that we're going to be focusing on editing skills. So, I'm going to be sharing with you specific grammar rules. Then I'm going to show you that rule applied, maybe not very well sometimes, in writing. Then we're going to apply that skill to learn how to correct and edit sentences. I also want you to know that I try to keep our grammar units based in mini lessons. I really don't like our grammar lessons to take very long. And so with that in mind, I like to keep them short and condensed. And so our grammar lessons will usually be about 10 to 15 minutes long. And that way we have time to focus on other units like reading and writing while we also work on grammar. For the practice of our skills, we're going to be editing sentences together like I already said, but we're also going to be using an interactive program called No Red Ink. I'm going to talk a little bit more about No Red Ink at the end of this presentation, and so look forward to that. And then lastly, every unit is going to have some sort of assessment. Typically, we'll have a large paragraph that will be filled with grammatical errors, and your task will be to correct those grammatical errors. For our daily practice, we're going to be using what I like to call our mug sentence correction sheets. And as you can see, I included a picture of what a sentence correction sheet will look like. And so essentially, a unit is going to be called a set. And there will be 2 sets for each unit. And each set has 5 sentences that ask you to practice specific skills that we've been learning about. I want you to know that these sentence correction sheets are purely a resource for you to use. So please know that I will never collect these sentence correction sheets. I'm never going to take them from you so I can put them in the grade book. Instead, it's going to be a tool for you to use to practice the skills we've been talking about. And then, as an added bonus to you, you can also use these sentence correction sheets on any and all tests or quizzes we have for grammar. Like I mentioned earlier, for our daily practice, we're going to be using a website called No Red Ink. I like to abbreviate it by calling it NRI, and so if you hear me talk about doing a homework assignment on NRI, you should know that we're talking about our interactive grammar tool from No Red Ink. Some other notes for you. I also like to provide note-taking guides when I give a grammar lecture. I just like to do that to expedite the note-taking process to make sure that our grammar lessons are actually mini, and so they go a little bit faster. Just another note for you. You are also able to use all of your grammar notes on any tests or quizzes. So again, just an added bonus and incentive for you to be taking notes as we go through grammar lectures. And then also just another tidbit, I will always have our grammar slides based in the same theme that I created this PowerPoint in. So if you aren't ever really sure what unit we're working on, our grammar lectures will always look like this one. And lastly, this last slide just lets you know that you can click here for any extra information on No Red Ink. And I'm going to show you that here in just a second. So again, when you click that link that says click here, it's going to pull up this PowerPoint. And this PowerPoint is actually found in the orientation folder on our Schoology page. But this information just reminds you of what No Red Ink is. So just very quickly, I'm going to show you what information is presented in this slide. So first, it will give you the code you need to join our No Red Ink class. You only need to use this code once. It also shows you information on how to join if you have not already. So if you haven't joined our No Red Ink class, be sure to follow these steps very soon, because I'm going to be posting our first No Red Ink assignment within the next few days. So again, it just shows you the process of logging in. It shows you the process of how to use No Red Ink as well. And then in closing, before I end this video here, I just want to remind you one last time. I know we talked about this at the beginning of the year, but I want to remind you that No Red Ink can sometimes be a little frustrating, okay? And so I want to remind you and give you some encouragement. If you find yourself really struggling with any of the topics on No Red Ink, please don't cause yourself to get so frustrated that you're ready to cry or break your computer. It's just not worth it. Instead, if you're really struggling with No Red Ink, please set up a time to come to my class for some general support, or we can do a Google Hangout as well, because I typically will have a trick for you to beat No Red Ink. So please ask for help if you need it. No Red Ink is not worth getting frustrated about or crying, so please don't cause yourself to have that much anxiety over it. If you have any questions about anything that I've talked to you about for our grammar unit, please don't hesitate to reach out. Bye everyone.